Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to get ready for your algebra final exam. I'm making this video when I'm recording it. It's the end of May, and a lot of students are going to be taking an algebra final about this time of the year, and in June as well. But if you may be taking algebra in college, sometimes that would be like college algebra. This video would apply to you as well because I'm going to kind of give you some general advice, and that you could be doing maybe watching this in December, getting ready for a final. So it all depends, but majority of students, and I'm kind of targeting high school students, are going to be taking it around the beginning of summer. Now, depending on how your teacher grades your overall grade, your final is significant. It could be upwards of 10%. I've even seen it upwards to say 40% of your grade. So a lot is riding on this. I'll say right off the bat, um, is you need to study like you never studied before when it comes to your final exams, especially if you're a student that's maybe in the C or B area. You need to just be like, you know, you know, 100% all in on studying until you're so sick of doing math that, if you're like so tired of math and you just like exhausted, then you study correctly. I'm going to give you some specifics here. Now, a little bit about myself is I taught math sixth grade at the college, taught it in public school. Helped design final exams. In the departments with other teachers talking about it. So yeah, kind of giving you some behind the scene insight on your final. Okay, so these tests are designed to kind of challenge you, one, but they also want you to pass. Okay, because it's important for teachers and schools that you just don't fail the exam. Doesn't look good for the teacher as well. So let's go ahead and talk about some things that you need to do to get ready for your final exam. So, and this is not going to be in any particular order, but I'm going to try to just give you the biggest main points. So the first one is you need to give yourself enough time. Okay. So as soon as you get done with your last chapter in your class, okay, if that's now, or if you're starting in your review, do not try to cram this what you have to do in like 1 or 2 days. That is not enough. I would say at least 1 week. Okay, and this goes for all students, but a lot of teachers will even start like a classroom review up to say 2 weeks. So the more time, the better, and you need to make use of the time. In other words, just be like, oh, I'm not going to do a little bit here and there. You need to be doing problems, you know, a lot. And I would say at a minimum, I would say like at least 1 hour per day, okay, and more as well, okay. Um, I think a lot of students, what gets them in trouble is they get overconfident. They don't respect the test in terms of, oh, it's not going to be challenging enough or important enough. Remember, uh, this, and I'm kind of gearing my comments here towards the high school student. Now, these exams, you're likely taking this maybe as a freshman in high school, ninth grade. These exams, your grades count for college. They go on your permanent transcript. So this is critically important, and you need to, try to reflect on that. A lot of students, they end up having a lot of regret going, saying, wow, I got a C in algebra, where if I got a B, I could have gotten into this particular college. Okay. And it really does come down to that later when you're applying for colleges. So you have to try to think forward on that. So what am I trying to say? You need to give the test, its due respect. And I know you have other things going on, other final exams, but if you're just kind of struggling in math, you need to just give yourself maximum time. Okay. More time, the better. And that includes weekends as well. All right. So that's the first obvious thing. But let me just say one more comment about time. Students will be like, well, I got my other finals coming up and I'll just give myself 1 to 2 days to study. That's completely inadequate. Okay. 1 to 2 days of studying for your final exam is not going to cut it. It might cut it for those students that were like getting A's and acing it throughout acing all the tests and whatnot. For the you students out there, I would say 2 days at a minimum might be enough for you to do well on your final. But for everybody else, you need at least 1 week minimum. Okay. So the second thing is you need to know the exam. Okay, know the exam. Let's say format. Okay, what do I mean by that? So is it going to be an open-ended? Okay, in other words, like fill in the blank, actually write your work down, or is it going to be multiple choice? Okay, so every school is different, every teacher is different, but let's just talk a little bit about the two. Okay, if it's going to be multiple choice, you're going to be, kind of selecting from like a Scantron sheet. Okay, this type of business, you're going to be filling in a blank. That's probably a better scenario for those students that are weak, because then you can get lucky and guess correctly. Okay, so let's just say that much. But it doesn't mean that the test is going to necessarily be any maybe easier. It just means that you need to understand how to take a multiple choice test. So let's talk about that a little bit. So for the multiple choice exams, let me give you a quick example. Let's say we had this equation, 2x squared minus 3x plus 7 equals 0. I just made this up, so I don't even know the exact solution here. I'm not going to work it out. I don't need to for what I want to get to, right? So let's say the question for multiple choice is select the solution. So we have ax equals negative 7, 2, maybe b equal x equals 0, 1, whatever the case is, right? Well, you can get away with finding the right answer here, okay, the right answer to the question without even knowing how to solve it, because what you can do is plug in the respective answers until you get the one that works. Okay, so you plug in, for example, let me just do a basic easy one. If I said 2x plus 1 equals 5, right? So when you solve this equation, x is equal to 2, right? So if I had a, x is equal to 1, b, x is equal to 3, c, x is equal to 2, I could just plug in these values, right, until I get the right one. So here, I replace x for that value, 2, and I say, oh, okay, that's the one that balances the equation. 4 plus 1 is equal to 5, 5 is equal to 5, okay? So that's the one I'm going to select. So that's a real big advantage if you're taking a straight multiple choice exam. Now, sometimes your teacher can kind of mix them up. Your school can be like half the test is multiple choice, other half open-ended. Open-ended would be solve this equation and then write your answer. And your teacher's actually going to look at your answer. So now let's talk about that scenario for a second, okay? Let me erase this. I'm going to give you, if you just be patient here, I'm going to talk about some specific math topics in algebra, but I want to just first kind of talk about the format and how you should be kind of strategizing. Okay, so open-ended. Now let's take this equation, and it's open-ended. Well, depending on how your teacher is, you definitely don't want to leave any question blank. Okay, so leaving a question blank is like the worst thing you can do. It's the same as like skipping a multiple choice question. Okay, because you don't skip a multiple choice. You answer every single question because you have a shot at getting something right. Same thing with these open-ended questions. You need to know enough, okay, to try to work out, show the teacher that you understand something about the problem. Okay, even if you don't know anything, just start writing, start taking some steps. Even if you're totally lost, okay, just don't leave it blank, because your teacher, let's say this question might be worth 8 points, okay? It's likely that your teacher may issue partial credit. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. But you still need to show them something. They might give you like a half a point for this question that you're totally clueless on. And that might be the difference between a D and a C for you passing or failing. Okay, I'm telling you right now because I was a teacher. Okay, I'm still in the field of mathematics education, but I know how teachers think, and I'm telling you right now, it can be subjective. In other words, they're going to help you out if they like you, and if you got enough evidence, though, they want to carry you over the hurdle line. They don't want you to fail. Let's just say that much. So you have to show evidence of some understanding. Now, I'm not saying every single teacher is going to grade this way or school, but You just don't leave any question blank, okay? So that goes to point number 3, okay? So point number 3, we are talking about algebra, and let's talk about like topics that you really need to know, okay? You really need to know. So what do I mean here? Well, these topics, you're guaranteed to see a lot of questions on your final, okay? So let's talk about a few of them. The first are going to be equations, all right? Equations. So things like solve things like, I'm just going to make something up. Like solve for x. This is just a basic linear equation. This type of equation here, this is going to be definitely in an algebra exam. You're probably, there's going to be more than one, okay? There's going to be multiple questions like this. So if you get really good at solving equations, okay, you're likely going to get these particular problems correct, okay? Now, when I'm talking about these topics, okay, topics you really need to know is you study a lot in algebra. Now, there might be topics in there, chapters that you're totally clueless about, okay? So those particular ones you might want to just put off to the side unless there's one of these main topics, because there's going to be a lot of questions in these categories. Now, this is a basic linear equations, okay? Let's talk about another type of equation that you're going to be seeing, and that would be quadratic equations, okay? So things like this, 2x squared minus 7x equals 0, okay? Definitely another big topic in algebra, okay? You're going to see more than one question. And now it's not only going to be quadratic equations, they're not going to be only solving the equation. You're probably going to be asked about the graphs, parabolas, okay? You're going to be asked about the graph, guaranteed about that, the type of roots, type of solutions. Now, I'm not going to get into everything in this video to try to teach you all of this, okay? I have plenty of stuff on my YouTube channel, and you can use your particular notes. So I'm just saying, hey, these are areas that you really want to, do well in. Another thing that's almost guaranteed that you will see on your algebra final is your ability to use the quadratic formula, okay? This is almost like guaranteed. In other words, like x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you don't even know what this is, you're probably in trouble. By the way, let me just make another point here, okay? Let me kind of back up. You need to know the exam format, but to be a little bit more specific here too, depending your school may not only focus, like you might have probably like semester 1 and semester 2, okay? So semester 2, all right. So depending on how your algebra final is, it may be testing everything, both the entire year or only the second semester. It all, it's every teacher, every school is different. So you need to know that, right? Because you don't want to be studying stuff that it's not going to be in your exam. Okay, so depending on these topics, okay, if you study them in, say, semester 1, but your final is only on semester 2, then just kind of disregard my advice, okay? So again, know what's going to be on the test. I've also seen students out there just like, they're not following what the teacher is saying. Hey, this is what's going to be on the test, and they go study something different that, that you don't need to know for the exam, okay? So anyways, but these topics here are going to be, the chances of them being on your final are very, very high. So let me continue on. So quadratic equations, this stuff, you need to know it. Another thing is going to be systems, okay? Systems of equations. So things like, let's say 2x minus 3y equals 8, and x plus 4y equals negative 1, something like that. So you need to know how to solve a system. You're likely, well, it depends on your exam format. You're probably going to have to know the substitution method. Well, not probably, you're definitely going to have to know that. You're probably going to know the substitution method and the elimination or linear combination method, okay? So bottom line is you need to know how to get the solutions to a system. There's going to be multiple questions, and guaranteed you're going to be asked about the type of solutions, okay? Type of solutions. And what I mean by that with a system can have one exact solution, it can have infinitely many, or it can have no solutions. So you need to understand the conditions where this is going to happen. Also, you're probably going to be asked to interpret a graph of a system and understand the solution as well. So another big topic in algebra. Okay, these are big multi, well, I want to say multi-chapter, but they can be. This is usually one big chapter. This is one big chapter. This is usually one big chapter, but they're huge core skills of Algebra 1, Algebra Foundation. So when your teacher is really testing, hey, did you understand, or do you have these requisite skills? Because you need them going forward in math, okay? So systems, quadratic equations, linear equations, and this is no particular order. Okay? I'm just kind of things that are coming to mind. Okay, so let's talk about some more things. Next is going to be graphing. Okay, graphing lines or linear equations, right? In other words, things like y equals mx plus b. You absolutely need to know how to graph lines, okay? So you need to know how to use a slope-intercept method. You need to understand xy intercepts. This is guaranteed. Multiple questions on your finals are going to be on here, okay? So again, if you're like, well, I can't learn everything in each one of these topics, then just do the best you can, obviously. Learn something from these topics. So for example, systems, if you don't, if you're really confused about the type of solutions, you know what, hey, just try to learn how to, find a solution to the system so you can answer some of the questions correctly, okay? So graphing lines, guaranteed, is going to be on there. Also, calculating slope, finding m, okay? This is another big type of problem. So in other words, if I said, find the slope of a line that passes to the point 1, 2, negative 3, 8, okay? Find what m is equal to. Guaranteed, that type of question is going to be on there. So your understanding of the slope of a line is going to be huge, okay? Now, along with graphing lines, and sometimes this is one chapter, sometimes it's two chapters, is finding the equation of a line, okay? I just kind of abbreviated there. Finding the equation of a line. That's basically saying, hey, find the equation of a line that has a slope of 7 and passes through the point 9, negative 2. Okay, so here you would use either this equation, y equals mx plus b, or you might use the point slope equation, this here, all right? Again, I can't possibly try to teach you all this in this video, but I'm just telling you these are things you absolutely are going to need to know. So you're going to have to find out how to find the equation of a line, okay? How to graph lines and how to find the equation of lines. Big concepts for Algebra 1, okay? So far we have equations, quadratic equations, systems, graphing lines, finding equation of lines. Now you're probably saying, well, yeah, this is like the entire course. Well, yes, I probably am saying that. All of it is important, and you're going to need it. If you're in Algebra 1 and you're in high school, right, you're going to need a lot of this material for geometry. You're going to need it in Algebra 2, so you might as well learn it now because it's only going to get more challenging. So that's why you want to give yourself enough time. Okay, let's talk about another big topic, and that would be like powers and exponents, okay? So rules of powers and exponents. In other words, things like a to the m to the n, okay? You need to know that's a particular rule. That's a to the m. So let me just kind of give you an example problem. Let's say you had 2x to the negative 7, y to the 8, all that squared over 10x to the 15th over y to the negative 2. So being able to simplify expressions with that have powers and exponents and working with this, that's another big topic, okay? I'm not going to get into it There's a lot of different rules in there. Students tend to confuse these rules, but you need to spend some time with this for sure. That's another important thing. And these topics that I'm laying out, you're not going to just have one question on these particular topics. They're going to be multiple questions. Let's say if you had a 50 question exam, you're probably talking 2 to 3 or 4 questions per, these things that I'm listing. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Another big area would be radicals. Okay. Radicals or like square roots. Guaranteed this is going to be on there. So for questions like, hey, simplify the square root of 80. Okay, so you need to know that's going to be the same as 4 times 20, right? Because 4 times 20 is 80. Or that's the same as 4 times 5, right? That's the same thing as 80. And so you could take out the square roots here. Okay, so that's 2 and 2. So without explaining this is going to be 4 radical 5. I'm pretty sure I did that correctly because I'm kind of doing this quickly. But you need to know how you go from here to here and all the other properties involved with radicals and simplifying, like finding the conjugate, like knowing that you can't leave an expression like this, that you have to radical you have to simplify by radicalizing this, okay? So we have to multiply this by both the top and bottom by square root of 7. So this is 3 radical 7 over square root of 7. Again, I'm just throwing things out there. This stuff should look familiar to you. Another big picture topic in Algebra 1, okay? Let's go on. I believe I'm going to probably leave you with 2 more, okay? The last is going to be rational functions. Rational. I'm gonna put the next one down here so I don't forget. I'll put it right here. We could talk about. Let me give myself some more room. And by the way, yes, indeed, if you find this video helpful, useful, please do subscribe and like the channel and give me some feedback. Let me know how things are going. But let's continue on with our review here. So functions, okay? All right, so rational functions, I'll just leave it as the word rational. These are going to be things like ratios and proportions, stuff like, let's say, a problem like this, knowing how to solve it. This is probably a very not a big part of rational function. Not probably, it definitely is. But you're definitely going to have like ratio and proportion problems. You need to know how to solve them along with some other rational equation stuff. So again, something that you want to know something about. And let's talk about the last one. And I don't think I'm missing out. There's other chapters, of course, probably in your algebra course, but these are the big, really big picture topics. The last one's going to be functions. So these are just understanding like what a function is. So let's just talk about some concepts here. So that would be like the domain, knowing what the domain is, knowing what the range is, knowing if something is a relation or a function, okay? Knowing about the vertical line test, knowing how to evaluate a function, maybe even finding the inverse function, all these things, another big topic. And I write this down because it's not, a teacher can't just ask you 1 or 2 questions to see if you remember, learned anything about these big topics. These are going to be multiple questions on your final. I can't guarantee it, but I'm just telling you from my experience. I've been doing this for many, many, many years. Multiple questions, okay? So let's kind of just review them real quick, okay? And then I'll leave you with some thoughts. And we'll kind of start from the beginning, okay? So you got to, do as best as you can on your final exam for algebra because it's a significant amount of your grade, all right? You need time, all right? 1 week minimum, okay? And you need to be studying like as much as you possibly can study until you like overstudy. If you overstudy, you study correctly. Next thing is, hey, you need to know that exam format. Is it going to be multiple choice? Is it going to be open-ended? The bottom line is you don't leave any question blank. Okay, you don't skip any questions. You don't leave any question blank. Now, the topics you really need to know. Okay, you got to know how to solve equations to the best of your ability, obviously, but just don't skip them over because these are going to be areas that are going to probably really focused in on your final. So, linear equations, quadratic equations. By the way, let me just mention what quadratic equations here. Completing the square. If you've heard of that, I'm sure you know this is kind of complicated, but this is a good example. Let's say in the quadratic equations, to type of solutions, quadratic formula, unless your teacher says there's absolutely going to be a completing the square problem on your exam, you might, definitely put less emphasis on it. Just make sure you know how to solve the, quadratic equations, okay? By the way, too, I'm missing a big topic here. Let me just throw this in, but I'll do this at the very end. A very big topic. Okay, systems. You got to know how to solve a system and know something about the type of solutions that you can get from a system. Graphing lines, guaranteed. You got to know how to graph a line using both slope-intercept method and XY-intercept method. Okay, you definitely need to know something about slope and how to calculate it. You have to know how to find the equation of a line. Okay, you got to know about powers and exponents for sure. Okay, radicals, guaranteed. You're going to see them on your final. Okay, you might even, what teachers do is oftentimes give you some basic questions in this area. So in other words, they might say, which one, or simplify the square root of 80. Okay, and they're looking for you to either select this answer or write the answer. So they're going to give you some more basic problems. And oftentimes on the final exam, they don't give you the hardest problems, but they will give you problems that cover these areas. So that's another thing too. When you're studying, you don't have to try to do the super most difficult problems. Okay, typically it's like just focus on the more basic and middle of the road problems, and you should be very well prepared. Okay, rational functions like ratios and proportions. Functions for sure. And the last thing that comes to mind, and this should kind of cover it, are polynomials. Okay, and what I mean for that is going to be like factoring. This is huge, and I can't believe that I almost left you without this topic. So factoring, big topic. So like how to factor something like this, for example, if it's factorable. Okay, so let's say x squared minus, let's say 4x squared minus 8x is equal to 0. You can factor that by what? Taking the GCF out, the greatest common factor, that would be 4x times x minus 2, okay? So this is an example of factoring. Also, like difference of 2 squared, a squared minus b squared, right, is equal to a plus b times a minus b. All these rules. This is a huge topic, okay? And again, I can't believe that I almost left it out. But guaranteed you'll have multiple questions on this. So it's a lot. This is why you need the time. It's a lot to cover because guaranteed you're going to see problems from all these different things. But it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it if you study hard, okay, and you just give it like your total best. You're going to look back, years down the road and be like, I'm glad I got a good grade in Algebra 1 because 1, you learn the material. 2, it's going to help you with your future courses. 3, you're going to get a good grade that's going to help you on your transcripts for college. And you just need to know algebra for sure. So hopefully this video helped you out. I do a lot of stuff trying to share my knowledge of mathematics, and especially from a teacher's perspective to help students out. So again, if you like this video, please subscribe, maybe give me a thumbs up, and give me some feedback on how it went for you. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all the best on your final.